Hello everyone, welcome back. Last class we've been dealing with education and the British rule, right? So today we'll do a continuation, that is the part 2 of education and British rule. Okay, so in our previous classes we learned about how the education system in India was. Well, there were pathshalas, madrasas before the British came, and after the British came they had two groups, that is the Orientalists who wanted to have education based on the native language, whereas the Angles, they wanted to spread education through Western education and Western means. And later on we have the Charter Act of 1813, which granted one leg for the expansion as well as for educating the Indians. Okay, so this one leg was for both the Angles as well as for the Orientalist group of people. But later on in 1835, with the introduction of the English Education Act, what happened was that this one leg rupee was only granted for the Angles group of people for the spread of Western education. Later on we studied about the Wood's Dispatch. Okay, so today we'll be looking into the flaws in education under the British rule. Okay, so what were the changes and what were the problems which were there when the British introduced education system in India. We'll be looking into that. Okay, so mass education was neglected in the Indian society. Okay, so the British people, they did not educate the whole entire India. Okay, so they educated only a few group of Indians. Okay, there were also only few primary schools which were set up. Okay, and that were also mostly in these important centers like Calcutta, Madras and Bombay. Okay, so these were the three important centers of the British. So they set up only few primary schools in order to educate a handful of Indians. Okay, and also these primary schools were not funded well by the British government, and because of which they suffered on a huge scale because of the lack of fund. Okay, the second point. Okay, so what happened was that the British felt that they should educate only the upper class and the middle class, because they thought that after educating them, these Indian people, they would again go and then educate the rest of India. So the British did not want to waste a huge amount of money on education. So what they did was they began to educate people from the higher class, upper class and the middle class, so that again later on when they are educated, they would go and then impart education to the rest of India. Okay, so that was called as the downward filtration theory. Okay, so this system of educating a handful of Indians, and later on after they get education, okay, they would go and then educate the rest of India. This system was known as downward filtration theory. Okay, so this was called as downward filtration theory. Okay, and also the government, on the other hand, they neglected the poor Indians. Okay, they didn't care about the poor Indians, so they focused mainly on the upper class and the middle class people. Okay, moving on, the third point. Okay, the education of girls was neglected at large. Okay, so the British people, they did not emphasize at all for educating women folk. Okay, it was only mostly the male members who were being educated, that were also people who were from the upper class as well as from the middle class. So education for girl child was neglected by the British. So in late 1921, what happened? Only 2 girls out of 100 Indian women, okay, were able to read and write. Okay, comparing, so in 100 Indian women, okay, only 2 were able to read and write in 1921. Moving on, okay, the last point, scientific and technical education was not existent in India. Okay, it was only later it started to come into existence. But there were only some few institutes which were set up by the British people, but they were taught in the Western style of education, okay, which was not needed, which was not needed or was not related to the topics that they should be taught. Okay, so that was the problems which was there in the British education system in India. Okay, moving on. Okay, we have reformers. Okay, reformers as educators. When we say reformers, it means a person, okay, who tries to bring change, okay, in order to benefit the society, okay, or maybe change the current system which is prevalent. Okay, so we also in India also we have a number of reformers in the field of education. Okay, they wanted to change the education system which was brought by the British people, and also they wanted to change the system of how they were educating the Indians. Okay, so they felt that these reformers such as Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, Swami Vivekanand, Swami Dayanand Saraswati, these were some educated reformers who wanted to change the education system in the India, okay, which were introduced by the British. And so according to them, okay, educating the Indians would be the best way, okay, to transform and reform the Indian society. Okay, so their main thinking was they should educate the Indians in such a way that the Indian society would transform as well as change. Okay, moving on, we had many Indians, okay, who wanted to bring a change, okay, in the education sector as well as in the Indian society as well. As such, okay, we had Sir Syed Ahmed Khan, okay, who felt the need of modern education for Muslims. So what he did was he set up many schools, okay, and he also translated many scientific works into Urdu. Okay, and one of his greatest achievements, okay, of Sir Syed Ahmed Khan was establishing the Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental College at Aligarh, okay, which is in Uttar Pradesh. Okay, and in this college, education were imparted in science, okay, in humanities, technical subject, and in English. Okay, so students from all over the country flock to this Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental College in order to study as well as get education. Okay, so currently the college is called as Aligarh Muslim University. Moving on, okay, in the place of Baroda, okay, which was a princely state and it was under the control of Maharaja Sayajirao. Okay, he played a very important role in educating as well as spreading education in Baroda. Baroda is in Gujarat. Okay, so he set up many schools. He also gave up funds, okay, so that the schools will run as well as it will be managed properly. Later on, he also established the Maharaja Sayajirao University, okay, which played a very crucial role in the education in Baroda. Okay, national education. So there were many Indians, okay, who wanted to bring a change as well as spread education in India. They played a very crucial role, okay, and also most of them, they urged the government to spend more money on education in setting up schools and colleges in India, okay, and they also wanted to set up a system of national education based on the Indian system, which was very different from the British way of education. Okay, there were two important pioneers in this, okay, or maybe two leaders such as Mahatma Gandhi and Rabindranath Tagore, who focused on educating the Indians through the means of Indian way, okay, Indian education to be imparted to the Indians instead of occupying or giving education through the British medium. Okay, moving on. Gandhiji was not in favor of Western education, okay, and he was against Western education, and he wanted an education, okay, that would help Indians, okay, to be proud of their past. And he also, okay, believed that, okay, practical knowledge was more important than learning from books. So he wanted all the students of India to learn craft so that they would be self-sufficient. They would earn from what they make instead of depending on others. Okay, and according to him, he says that once an Indian student learned all this, he believed that this would also lead to the development of their body, mind and soul. So Gandhiji focused on a scheme which was called as Nai Talim, okay, which was known as New Education. So Gandhiji wanted his students to focus, okay, or Gandhiji wanted the students of India to focus on crafts so that they would be self-sufficient and they would also know about the dignity of labor. Okay, next we have Rabindranath Tagore, who was also an advocate of education. Okay, he established the Vishwa Bharati University, okay, at Shantiniketan, okay, which is in West Bengal. So according to Rabindranath Tagore, he wanted to combine both the Western education as well as the Indian educational system together, okay, to educate the Indians. Students at Shantiniketan, okay, were taught art, music, okay, dance and courses in science and technology. Okay, growth of science. Okay, many Indian scholars as well as the educated persons believe that due to the negligence or due to Indians not giving importance to science, okay, there was a lot of backwardness in the Indian society. Okay, so in order to prevent that, the Indian educated person, they try to push, push up, okay, in setting up Department of Science in different universities, okay, and they also try to popularize science in India by establishing different societies as such. Okay, Mahendra Lal Sirkar, he founded the Indian Association for the Cultivation of Science in 1857 at Calcutta. Okay, so this association played a very crucial role, okay, in the promotion as well as in popularizing science in India. Okay, and later on in 1920s, the Indian Science Congress Association was set up in India. So scientists from all over the country, they gathered together, okay, they held discussions, they had reviews, and they exchanged their views for the betterment of the country. Okay, and some of the important scientists during that time were C.V. Raman, J.C. Bose, S.N. Bose, Megan Shah. Okay, they were the scientists who were taking part in that Indian Science Congress Association conference. Okay, so with this, okay, we come to the end of this chapter. Okay, so we can say that education played a very crucial role. It was, initiated by the British people, but slowly by slowly the Indians, they also, they were educated. They also started to bring some changes in the Indian society by establishing universities, okay, and also by establishing colleges in India, educating the mass. Okay, and slowly by slowly what happened, growth in science also took place in India. Okay, so the British were the first people, okay, who introduced Western education in India. Okay, but with time, slowly by slowly, all the Indians began to be educated on a large scale. Okay.